Yep.
This is good?
Yeah.
I can check with the kids. Is it going now?
Yeah. The Zoom's gonna go for a few minutes.
Hi, Holly.
Annie, do you want to clink a glass?
My name is John Howard. I am one of 4 sons. We have the other 3. I'm behind me. The other 3 here. This is the only part that's going to be like even remotely formal, because those of you, especially those of you who knew Dad like recently, knew that his formality dress was a T-shirt from CERT from 30 years ago and a Tilly hat. So, like, I'm wearing a sports coat. I'm not sure the last time I saw him in one of these. But, so what we're going, this is like the formal part. We're going to talk a little bit. We've got a Zoom up, so we have some people on the Zoom watching who could not be here. And I think it's just going to be several people who want to talk, whoever wants to talk. We'll just have a little bit of a memories of Dad, what he was like, and family a little bit more in general. And we'll go from there. We have slides up right now. We've restarted them. These we're talking about his time at CERC. I stole shamelessly from CERC. If there is anybody from CERC, thank you for putting stuff up on the website that I could steal from. And also his history there, because like even I didn't recognize all the stuff that he had done while he was there. 50 years. He worked like easily into 2025. Knowing him, he probably did a little bit in 2026 too. 50 years there at CERC with CTAC, which is environmental toxicology journal for like 30 some odd years. He did a lot of things. He also did a lot of things like tennis and pickleball. Pretty sure there's some of you here know that. Yeah. I think he got his tennis skills mostly from his parents. I remember my grandmother had a killer overhand slice so that it would hit and drop. And every time she did it to a grandkid, she'd have to apologize to them. So we're like, and there's nothing I can do with that. So let me get going from my part. I'm going to do my speechifying part. I have it written down because this is not the thing you want to wing. I winged everything else so far, but not this. So, yeah, my name is John Howard. I am the oldest of the 4 sons. I think because we have no better idea about this, we're going to go in birth order with this. I'm one of the people who helped put the picture slideshow together. It had a lot of people send in pictures for it, which was really, really useful and really helpful. We've kind of deliberately shuffled the slides so they don't go in chronological order or anything else. Every time they flip every 20 seconds, you'll get a surprise every time one of them shows up. The thing I'm sort of focusing my part on is if you watch the ones where he's, especially if he's with a grandchild, almost universally on those, he's smiling, right? And it's not the say cheese smile. It's his actual like deep smile. He so enjoyed being with grandkids and everybody else. Like he really loved his family. He loved it all the way down. He loved it, all parts of him. He tried really hard to be the best husband, the best father, the best grandfather that he could be. When I was 14, I knew way more about Leo Buscaglia than I probably should have known at that age. But he's in there reading the books and trying to apply it. So I distinctly remember a time where I had done something I probably shouldn't have done, and he called me into his bedroom, and we both sort of laid down on the bed, and he said, "So, why'd you do that?" I was like, "This is actually harder." Because my answer is, I don't know. It wasn't a really good idea. So, yeah. So he really worked at it. He wanted to be as good a dad as possible. He was always there for me. I think all four of us can say he was always there for us. He wanted to help. He wanted to give advice. I mean, I know most dads do that, but he really wanted to give advice. He wanted to show me how to do minor home repairs. I mean, all the things. And I really, really appreciated that part. He was a phone call away from us. Right? He also always treated me as an adult. Right? I never remember being a child and being treated as a child. Right? He was age appropriate. He wasn't talking with us about retirement plans when we were 6, but there was an expectation of, like, you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, and so on and so forth. And he talked to us as like a person, which was really, I appreciated that too. I've tried to do that with my kids, and they're over there sitting there and hopefully agreeing with that. The part that gets a little hard, this is the part that gets a little touchy. When I was 12 or something, I still to this day can't remember exactly when, he and my mom divorced. That is always a tough thing. But he tried really hard that was a thing between him and my mom, and the kids that was not our fault. And that actually specifically came to us as a definitive statement. He actually came out and said that, which if you remember the early 1980s, that's advanced, right? I really appreciated that part. They made sure that that we understood that this is not us. This is between the two of them, right? And then, again, if you remember the early 1980s, sometimes one of the parents from a divorce will go away, and he never did that. He was always there. We spent a night with him every week. We spent time with him during the summer vacations, going to our grandparents' house in Worcester for Thanksgiving, cramming way too many people into way too small of a space. There was a kid apparently sleeping in a closet there sometimes because they had no room. It worked. It was a really skinny bed, and he was always there. He was always present. He was always someone who was interested in his kids and his grandkids and wanted to know what was going on and kept up with us. So that's the thing I'm sort of focusing mine on is his love for his family, and I'm pretty sure that pretty much everybody in the room, if you knew him, you also felt that coming off of him, because he was, that's just the way he was. He wasn't mean to people. He wasn't unhappy with people. He was just nice to everybody, and that's my part. So I think up next is Andy.
So I printed this out in like 24-point font, so I didn't have to put my glasses on, but I still can't see it. Well, thanks everybody for coming, and for the people that are able to listen in online. It's great to see everybody here. Most of what I'm going to say, I was lucky enough to actually tell Dad in person when I was down there, one of the last times, and I think it was a really special moment. It was a hard moment for me and for him, I think. But if you ever, I always wondered why, you have eulogies, but the person that you're doing the eulogy for doesn't get to hear what you're saying. So that's sort of what my strategy was there, and I would encourage any of you in the future to do the same. So what I titled it was Phil Howard, A Rich Life. I said my father led a rich life, and not by money, but by the way that he lived his life. He really had everything that he wanted. He had a great and loving family. He had houses at the river and in Sanibel. He had a boat that he loved. He loved playing tennis and pickleball more recently. And as John mentioned, just being able to spend time with his family. And that was all he really needed. There wasn't anything else that he really needed. And speaking of tennis and pickleball, I think you probably all know this too, but he would love to, when I would talk to him on the phone, probably half the time was spent with him talking about his exploits on the courts. One of his favorites was, well, I went and played tennis on an island today. That was one of his favorites. And he also liked to give a humble brag about how nice the sunsets were at the river and about the weather in Florida when it was cold and freezing in Connecticut. But he was just trying to tease me. As John mentioned, and there was some slides in the show, my dad was an extremely smart man and a great chemist. I went with him to an event, I think it was one of those SeaTac events in DC one time when we were living down there, and the people could not stop raving about him. Your dad is the best, this and that. He's so smart, he's done all this stuff. So that was obviously nice to hear. And even when I was down in Sanibel recently, there was a lot of notes from people saying, thank you for cleaning up the lake. I guess the lake had gotten all green kind of, and he figured out a way to get some water flow in there and fix it, and the people were all very appreciative about that. So as smart as he was, sometimes he didn't have the best common sense. So in fact, it's lucky that we are all here, because when he was applying for PhD school, he asked his college professor for a recommendation. And apparently this college professor did not care for him that much. So not the person that you wanted to write the recommendation for. And they said, do not accept this person under any circumstance. But somebody else dropped out and they let him in, and the rest is history. So that's a good one. Another story that my kids love is he got a new waterproof phone case here for the river so he could take it on the boat, and he wanted to check it out to see if it worked. So he dropped it in the river, and turns out it was waterproof, but it was not sink proof, so he had to go swimming to fetch that. My oldest daughter, Dory, really loves that one. So my girls, I've got 3 daughters, Dory, who's on the line, Janet, and Hadley. They were able to send notes to Grampy that I was able to read to him. Before he passed away, I was going to try to read them today, but there's no way I could get through those. But some of the memories that they shared included Karen and my dad would come to see them in Orlando when they were playing in lacrosse tournaments, and they always loved that, and getting to see them down in Florida. Also, my dad loved French food, and we took him to a French restaurant in Connecticut where we live one time, and he introduced the family to creme brulee, which none of us had actually ever had. And that is now a full-on staple of our meal, and has cost me a lot of money. And of course, they love playing tennis with my dad at the river over in TI Park. My wife's family had a cottage in TI Park, so we used to come up all the time. And they always appreciated the help that Grampy, that's what they called him, would provide for the tennis lessons. And my tallest daughter, Hadley, actually credits her height from Grampy. That's what she tells all her friends. So I have many great memories of Dad, but the ones that stick out the most are summer trips to the camp in Sturbridge, where my parents had a summer cottage, and that's where I learned to water ski. And myself and my brother and my cousins would all go on this thing called the surfboard that my grandfather made. It was basically a piece of plywood attached to a rope, and we would all stand on it. My dad would whip the boat around and try to dislodge us, and I can't believe we never ended up in the hospital with that. But there were other hospital visits, but not because of that. And Dad would just drive us around all day on the boat. He loved it. And then we had this old cool, it was like a wooden boat. It had a 40 horsepower Evinrude engine on it that from like the 1950s that would break down pretty much every year. And my dad and my uncles would tinker around with it, and sometimes they could fix it. My uncles were engineers, so a lot of times they could fix it, but if Grandpa had to come down from the cottage and get into the boat, we knew there was big trouble. But Grandpa would inevitably, he was also an engineer, he would always fix it. And then at the end of the day, we'd all go onto the porch, and the kids would have popcorn, and the adults would have cocktails, and just watch the sun go down. We used to come up to the river every summer, as I mentioned, which was great because we could also see Dad and Karen. We would always go on a boat ride, and you can see in a lot of the pictures, Dad was always sitting in the driver's seat, looking back at everybody with a big giant smile on his face because he loved that. He also taught my daughters how to water ski up here at the river because their beach was a really good starting point, and we started off with the giant wooden skis there, and then I ended up buying another pair because those were pretty old. My daughters also loved going on the ride on the jet ski. There's probably a few photos in there of that. In fact, one of the videos that we watched, Dad was out with two of my daughters spinning around in a pouring rain, and I'm sure that wasn't all that comfortable, but he was happy to do it. And then the best part of the day was taking a bath in the river or the lake, and then watching the sunset and having a beer. So, love you, Dad. Thanks for always being there for me. You're the best.
Hello everyone, my name's Jason. I'm the third son. So you all heard how Dad had an amazing career. He's a loving husband and father. And I just wanted to share with you what a great grandfather he was. He was always happy to read books to my children, even though they were climbing all over him. He loved taking them on boat rides and jet ski rides, and then teaching my kids how to play tennis and then pickleball. He really just loved his family, kind of just like John and Andy touched on. He always loved, he always had some grapefruit with him no matter where he went, and would always cut it in half and share half of it with my Vivian or Casey, and then the other half with him, and he'd always have a maraschino cherry with him too. And somehow he always managed to make an excuse of being able to pick up pizza and ice cream. Don't worry about cooking, I'll grab a pizza and ice cream to share with the kids. And even when his favorite stone wheat thin crackers got discontinued, and he had a secret stash hidden in the attic. He still would let Vivian bring a box home with her every time we visited. So he really valued his time with his family and his friends. That was what made his life so rich. And I think we're all so special to have shared it with him. And just really glad you guys were all able to make it out here. Just show your appreciation, for the life he lived and the time he spent with you.
Hi everyone, my name's Teddy. I drew the short straw here. So I want to thank you all for being here to celebrate my dad's life. When he passed away this spring, we decided to hold this event up here where the most amount of family and friends could be here. And in some ways that was tough because several months have gone by without a chance to gather and remember him, which is to say, seeing the number of people here today has made it worth the wait, so thank you all. My dad led a remarkable life, and if you want to get a sense of who he was, go read some of the stories from the people he worked with, which are over on the display table. Colleagues calling him a pioneer, a giant of his field, and a kind, generous, great-minded man. There's also several mentions of how often he burned popcorn in the microwave at the office, which to me is a perfect description of who he was. Just immensely intelligent and patient with others, and also completely aloof at times. So recently I find myself thinking about my dad's legacy, of course, and he had this amazing career that some of my brothers talked about. With all these accomplishments, he authored several books and was revered by his colleagues. But I think his greatest accomplishment was his family. And he grew up in a big family. He had 3 siblings, and then went on to have 4 sons. And to date, that has produced 9 grandchildren. That screechy one in the back was the 9th one. That's mine. Sorry about that. So the Howard family tree is quite large now, and it continues to grow. I really wish he was here so that I could tell him that he's going to make it to double digits. A 10th grandchild. My wife Abby and I are expecting our 2nd child and my dad's 10th grandchild in January. So, of course, I'm saddened to think that my youngest won't know their grandpa, but he lives on through his family and the stories we tell. So I'm going to share one of those stories, and of course, it's a tennis story. So around about 10 years ago, I went to visit my mom and dad in Sanibel, and there was this tennis tournament happening down at the Dunes Club, and my dad asked me if I wanted to play. And without really understanding the magnitude of that question, I said, sure. And as we were kind of getting ready, my mom took me aside and kind of winked at me and said, "This is really important to your dad." Then on the drive down to the dunes, my dad starts telling me this story about a tournament he played in with his father, my grandfather. And one of these matches that they were playing in, the opponents hit this long arcing shot to the back corner, and my grandfather went running after it unsuccessfully and wound up sprawled out on the court, almost injuring himself. And my dad kind of went over to him and said, "Why did you do that?" He used that phrase quite often in his life. And my grandfather replied, "I didn't want to let you down, son." And he finished telling me this story with that kind of wry smile he had. And I knew two things. One, we're going to go win this damn tournament. No excuses. And two, that my dad was a Howard and communicated cryptically, and he didn't want to let down his son either. And throughout my life, he never did. He was always there, chasing down some shot he knew he couldn't get. So there are many other stories, including one laboratory explosion on the Syracuse University campus. Actually, multiple explosions. Apparently that might have been why he didn't get a job offer. Or a good recommendation, I should say. But one thing's for sure, I want to continue telling these stories. I'm going to close by saying I'm incredibly proud that he was my dad. He was a great person, a great father and grandfather, and I'm going to miss him every day. So, thank you.
If anybody else would like to say anything, feel free.
Yeah, we're sort of winging this part. We got a couple open mic folks coming, okay. If you stand here, then the folks online can see.
Yeah, it was a pleasure in my life to have known Phil. I remember many times coming up to the camp, sharing beer with him. I also remember skiing with him. Skiing at Breckenridge, and he ran into me. That was my version. His version was that I ran into him. We saw eye to eye on many things, as long as I was standing on a chair. It was really a lot of fun knowing him. I remember our Alaska cruise, where we had the drink package, and one of his goals was to make sure he sampled every beer that was available. So yeah, a lot of fun knowing him, shared a lot of beers with him, a lot of laughs. He was a great friend. He'll be missed. He'll be missed.
I was new to the area, learning to play tennis. There's a tournament in Cape Vincent. They're going to play with Dr. Phil. Really? Yeah, that's what everybody calls him, Dr. Phil. Okay, so he's hanging around and I'm hanging around and I'm like, "Are you Dr. Phil?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'm Nurse Kim." He's like, "Oh, okay." So we were just kind of getting to know each other, and he's making fun of the water that I'm drinking, smart water. So I felt the need to share with him the benefits of smart water, how good it's for electrolytes and replacing. Then I find out he's a doctor of biochemistry. So we had a really good, joking relationship for not enough years. But I would get lithium water from the springs and send it to him because it was supposed to be healthy. He tasted it, and he used a superlative regarding the taste. But anyway, I too miss him. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
We have food, there's appetizers, there's a lot of people here, a lot of really fun, interesting people here. Let's just have some time and remember Phil, and watch the slides and talk about him and catch up with everybody else.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.